Welcome to this programming tutorial. In today's tutorial, we're going to look at two-dimensional lists. So what is a 2D list or a two-dimensional list? Well, simply put, it's when you have a list inside of a list. Let's look at our shop list again. And we're going to have apple, orange, and banana. We know that we can print out something from the shop list by using an index with the square brackets. And we know that the square brackets represent our list, which are separated by commas. Let's now modify this so that each item in our list also contains a price. I'm going to use the square brackets again to create a list inside a list. And let's specify it with, I don't know, let's say 0.50 for an apple. Let me copy and paste things over here. We'll pay £1.50 for an orange, and we'll do £3 for a banana. Notice that the colors of these are now purple. That's because these lists are inside this big list. So what happens if I print shop list 0 now? Well, I'll get the first sublist. Let's specify the indexes to make things a bit more easy to understand. This sublist is position 0, this sublist is position 1, and this sublist is position 2. How do I get the individual items of the sublist? Well, if you remember from last lesson, I showed you how you could go deeper into a list using multiple square brackets. The same is true for here. If that is the first position, how can we specify the other positions? Well, apple will be the 0th position inside position 0. It's the 0 position inside this position. Orange is the 0th position in 1, and banana is the 0th position in 2. So if I go here, I can specify 0, 1, and this will give me 0, 1, or 0 followed by 1. I get 50 pence. See? If I put 0 here, what do you think I'll get? Well, it should go to position 0, which is this sublist over here, and then access the 0th position, which is this one over here. I should get banana. Now, you could take that one step further and create a 3D list where, again, you remember the string is a list by itself. If I do 202, I should get 2, 0, and the second position, which is n. Because if I go one step deeper, each item is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, followed by 0, 1, 2, 3, followed by 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 0, 1, 2, 3. So by using 3 square brackets, the first square bracket targets the main list. The second square bracket targets the individual items in that list. And the third square bracket represents each character in that list. Now keep in mind, this doesn't always work in lists because sometimes you have lists with float, or you can have lists with integers. And you can't really run through this like you can with strings, unless you convert it first. Now, you don't have to know much about 3D lists, and to be honest, you shouldn't ever really have to use them, at least not at your level. Let's just stick to understanding 2D lists. What's the most important point to learn here? How do we output, or how do we run through every item in the list? Well, let's have a look. You know that you can use a for loop, so let's do for I in range 0 to the length of my shop list. Like that, and we can print shop list I. But unfortunately, if I put end equals a space here, that will print out an error over here because I've created 2 ints. 1 second. There we go. We get the list individually next to each other, but we have the individual lists. Now I could fix this by doing I0, I1, and actually I could fix it by doing I0 followed by I1. Because when I is 0, it's going to print out 0 and 1. When I is 1, it's going to print out 0 and 1, and so on. So that fixes our issue. But there's a better way to do this, because what happens if we have one item that has more items in it? Let's say this one is ripe. I will put another index over here. Well, now with the way I've got things, I'm never going to output all of the items in the list. And if I put a third one here, I'm going to get an index error because, yeah, there we go. Because there is no third item in this list, nor is there a third item in this list. So how can I solve this? Well, I know shop list I is the individual subarray, like that. Why don't I create a nested for loop with a different variable name? I'll do it in range 0 to the length of my sublist. Remember, we have to use I here because this references an individual sublist, not the entire list. Well, now I can print out shop list I. Remember, square brackets can go deeper, followed by J, and then have end with a space. So this is going to specify I, which is going to be 0, 1, and 2. And every time we go inside that, we're going to follow J, which goes 0, 1, then 0, 1, then 0, 1, 2. And there we go. I get every item in every one of my lists. This nested for loop is important to remember, or important to understand. The important part here is understanding that the first one runs through every sublist. The second one runs through every item in that sublist. That's what this square bracket means. Get used to using lists and get used to using 2D lists because they're very useful in storing multiple pieces of data at the same time. Thank you for watching this tutorial. I hope you found it helpful.